Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts. Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Where there's a will, there's a way. How many of you have heard that before? Raise your hand. There were 3 men who were out hiking, and they came upon a rather large river that they needed to cross, and they decided what they would do about it would be to pray to God, asking for help to cross the river. So the first man, he prayed and said, God, give me the strength to cross this river. And suddenly God gave him these huge muscles, and he swam across the river. The second man prayed and said, God, give me the strength and intelligence to cross that river. So he looked around and he saw a tree. He cut it down and carved out the logs and made a canoe and rowed across the river. The third man said, God, give me the strength, intelligence, and ability and willpower to cross the river. And God turned him into a woman, and she looked around, and she saw a bridge, and she crossed the river. Sorry, fellas. So, the power or faculty of mind that I am going to be sharing with you tonight is that of the power of will. The power of will. Now, will is traditionally associated with the month of July. The color associated with the power of will is silver. And the disciple that this power connects with is Matthew. Now this power or faculty is located in the front brain in the area just above the eyebrow. Now there are a couple of other faculties or powers that are kind of near to it, like understanding, imagination, and faith is not too far away from that. And I'm going to get into later something to do with all 4 of these. Now, the power of will is considered the executive faculty of mind. And what this means, it is kind of like a control center, okay? Or like when I spoke the last time on Sunday, I talked about the grand operational design, you know, GOD. So it's kind of like that grand operational design, and it is responsible for supporting the other faculties, the other powers in executing their particular process for us. And as this executive power or this control center of mind, it functions in alignment with the powers of what is on earth and in heaven. And you probably have heard or are familiar with the scriptures, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's from the Lord's Prayer. And what that scripture means is thy executive power, the power that comes from the mind of God and contains the directive that we desire to manifest on earth. On earth represents the physical body or the physical realm, as in heaven, as in that divine realm of perfection. So that scripture is asking for will to motivate that which we desire to have happen in our lives, whether it is the healing of the physical body or a manifestation or some other desire that we have, that it be in alignment with that perfection in heaven, that when it manifests on earth or in the physical body, that it carries with it all of the principles and powers and faculties that come from God. Now, the power of will means I go forth aligned with the desires of my being, linked with the power of divine mind, and bring forth the perfection in my life that I may live with the will of God. Now, one of the things I want to tell you about this power, Charles Fillmore says, God does not override our will. We have our will as humans, and then there is God's will, and God does not override that. If we prefer to have our will be done, then God will not interfere, because God gave us what? Free will. So that we are not bound to abide by the laws of God. We can be bound by the laws of humanity. And what will manifest in our lives will relate to that will with which we will. So if we will with the will of God, then that which comes forth, of course, is that divine perfection. But if we will with the will of humanity, we get what we get. The power of will is also aligned with the power of understanding. And understanding simply lets us know that our will is God's will. Our will is God's will. Now, we can, as I said, we can will with that human will. But when we will with the will of God, our will is God's will. And therefore, it is divinely ordained when we align with that. The power of will is also aligned with imagination. The power of imagination. And the power of imagination is that faculty that allows us to hold in mind that which we want to see, the picture of it, the idea of it so strongly that when it manifests, it is fully a replication of the power of it that we have held in our mind, that picture, that vision that we held in our mind. You know, there's a saying that seeing is believing, but in this case, believing is seeing. The power of will is also closely aligned with the power of faith. And faith is the perceiving power of mind linked with the power to shape substance. So what am I talking about? Faith is that faculty that allows us to know that it will manifest before we even asked for it. Because we have held that vision so strongly and so completely and so fully realized in our minds that, of course, the power of God must align with that and align with us in making sure that what we have faith in is made manifest. Now, this too is a catch-22 situation. Because God will allow us to have whatever we have faith in. So if we have faith in the power of humanity, of humankind, then the things that show up in our lives will be very much in alignment with the same old, same old. We will get what we've always been getting. But if we have faith in the possibilities that exist within God, within that complete and unalterable perfection that is God, then what shows up in our lives is that perfection. As within, so without. So there is a lot of power in will. It all depends, of course, on how we use it, right? And as all the faculties, as Reverend Karen and Reverend Jean Marie have told you and will continue to tell you, all of the faculties may be used for our own devices, or they may be used for God's will. And what shows up is a result of that which we choose. The scriptures say, choose you this day whom you will serve, God or the ego. So therefore, if you choose with God and you will with the will of God, what will show up in our lives is all that we could ever possibly need, require, or desire. And of course, if we align with the human arena and that which we are seeing with our eyes and that which we are touching with our hands, then we will continue to do the same thing over and over, expecting to get a different result. Last I checked, it was called insanity. So, will, understanding, imagination, and faith are the mighty four. They are the mighty four. And with that will, that executive control center, aligned with all three of these other amazing faculties, we get to decide how we want our life to be. We get to bring into this world that which we want to see. And as I'm looking at things right now in our world, I'm kind of wishing or hoping that more of us begin to will with the will of God. Because we're kind of in the midst of a train wreck. And I know for a fact that we have the power within us to turn this train around, to bring this train back on the track. And I'm about to get a little political. My darlings, I do not blame Donald Trump. That is useless. That is fruitless. Donald Trump is here to wake us up to the possibilities within us to create what we wish to see in this world. Stop blaming this on Donald Trump. And the key to having this perfection show up first is to love Donald Trump. Take a deep breath and exhale. I do love him. He is my brother. I don't have to like him. God said, love one another. God did not say like one another. But as a sister to a brother, as one creation of God to another, I love him. And I believe that if we use our will of love to send to him, Donald Trump can be transformed just like anybody else. He is a son of God and made in the image and likeness of God. And so the criticizing, condemning, and judging is an aspect of willing that is not showing us what we want to see in this world. So how do we facilitate this faculty of will? Well, the first thing is to know, to understand that God's will is our will. And if there is anything that we want to see realized, we look at that which we want to see in our lives and we say, I know that if I will with the will of God, this can be so in my life because my will is God's will. And then we imagine it exactly as we wish to see it. We use that faculty of imagination and we hold in our mind that which we want to see in the world, and then we allow that will to carry it forth. We will with the will of God, and we allow that will to carry it forth, that executive faculty to bring it forth. And we have faith that even before we asked, it is done. If we are willing with the will of God, we can have the faith that it is done even before we ask. We don't have to see it first. If you're going to try on a suit or a dress, you might have to see it first. But with the action of God, you don't have to see it first. You just have to believe that it is so, and it is done. And then after that, you just relax. You release and expect. And one of the things that I do every morning is I say, before I get out of bed, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? I am willing to do your will. Just tell me in a way that I will understand. Because I don't get subtleties. I don't get whispers on the wind or a butterfly wing brushing my cheek. I get told clearly. So you can ask, tell me in a way that I will understand. I was going to share with you a story of something that happened way back, and it was the most remarkable example of will, but today, Oh, I had a revelation. I had an awareness. I had an awakening. How many of you have paid attention to today's date? 8/8/18. Now that might not mean anything to you, but I want you to know that the number 8 represents death and rebirth to a new life. Since my mother died January 17th, I have been dead. I have been in a pain that was so profound that I can't even describe it. All I know is that I've never felt a pain like this before. I have been the walking dead. I show up because God told me that time in the Superdome when I was with New Orleans Opera and I was singing the national anthem, and I used to have stage fright, and I had an out-of-body experience. And when I came back, and by the way, I was taken to a field of yellow flowers as far as the eye could see, and I was standing under a weeping willow tree. And when the national anthem was finished, I came back and this voice said, "You see, you don't do the singing, I do. All you have to do is show up and look cute." And so that has been my responsibility, to show up and look cute. And when I speak or when I sing, God speaks through me. God sings through me. But lately, I was in so much pain that I was in the tomb. And I've been showing up, beloveds, but God has been showing up for me, not through me. I have taken care of the look cute thing. But it took the will. It took so much will to get out of bed every morning. I had to will myself to get out of bed. And I know that you see me as this powerful woman who looks cute. But I want you to know that since January, who has been showing up has been God. Because I am still in the tomb and God is showing up for me. God has spoken for me. God has taught classes for me. God has done workshops for me. And throughout the whole process, I have been in the tomb. And then today, I'm just going through my notes, and I see 8/8/18. And I quickly look up the number. Death and rebirth to a new life. And the past few days, so much new has been showing up in my life. Many blessings, people calling for me to come and do speaking engagements, people sending for me to come to California to celebrate my previous church's anniversary. I mean, just one thing after another. A photographer calls to take pictures of me so I can get my new publicity material, thanks to my son. Before that, I couldn't get out of bed, my beloveds. I share this with you because, sometimes ministers are afraid to share their woundedness or their whatever is not appearing to be of God with the congregation, because they feel that the congregation will look at them and say, how can they be a minister and go through this? How can I be a minister and not go through this? Because you see, if I'm not walking my talk, you don't want me to minister to you. So I am letting you know, I have not been here since January 17th. But God has shown up for me every time there was something that I needed to do on God's behalf. And I've been teaching the transitions course, and this time I am doing it with my students. And I was sharing with them last night that I'm now coming out of the void. But it wasn't until I saw 8:18. That was my message from God. You are there because I am there. And now I surrender this to you, but I will continue to speak through you and to sing through you and to teach through you. But now I know you've got this. And it's all because I used that will, that strong will, just to get up, just to get out of the bed and get dressed. And there was nothing much else I could do. But God did not let me down because I will with the will of God. God showed up for me. And I'm telling you, my beloveds, if you will with the will of God, God will show up for you. In your darkest hour, in your most difficult times, God will show up for you. God will take your place and represent you with a mightiness that you have never imagined. And you can just continue to lie there in that tomb until you are ready to rise up and take back your life. I share this because I want you to know if I can do it, you can do it. This has nothing to do with ministerial school. This has to do with the trust I have in God and the faith I have in God's will for me. That no matter what, God will show up. I will with the will of God. 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 Thank you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.